Hello and welcome to Cultural Dishcovery. I'm your host Shelina Elyse and I am a home cook exploring the world through different recipes. So today we're actually going to make a recipe that's close and near and dear to my heart, chicken tinola. It is a Filipino dish that I grew up with. I am going to be working with the version that I know and I'll explain a little bit more about that. So thank you so much for joining us today. What I have with me here, we're going to start with the rice. So I have jasmine rice. That's specifically the rice that I grew up with in my household. It's my favorite. I have it here in a rice cooker because I am not so expert level to make it in a pot on the stove. But just to let you know, in my household, we wash the rice. We rinse it about 3 times until the water runs more clear than when you started. You put however much rice you want, and then in the words of my mother and of her culture, the way that you measure the water is you put your finger down on the rice. I've got nails, so I kind of put my fingernail into the rice and start with my finger, and then you want to go a knuckle of water above the rice, and that should make you perfect rice every time. Also in the pot on the stove. So I'm gonna go ahead, I have prepared this in that way. I'm gonna put it here on my little cooker stand so that can work while we do our other items. So I have ginger root here that I have cut up into coin-ish shapes. I have about a cup, and I love ginger. So, and as with any other of the ingredients here, I'm gonna show you how I like to do it, and feel free to make it your own. I have a cup of coins here. We're gonna go back here over to the water. Your pot does not have to be this intense, but I get a little wary with a shorter pot, and I just happen to own a giant stock pot, probably half the size of my body. In here I have a gallon of water. Look up how many cups that is because I don't remember. So we're going to set the burner to medium to high heat because we're going to boil this water. Since I haven't pre-cooked my ingredients or prepared the vegetables rather, I'm going to put this in like a medium to high heat. Actually, you know what? I'm going to bump it up a little bit, and then we're going to get this boiling, but I'm going to season the water to prepare it for the rest of the ingredients. So I'm going to just dump this all in here. All of that ginger, and then I am going to put a tablespoon of salt into this water. I prefer this recipe a little bit on the saltier side. So again, do what you will with the salt and however your heart feels that. So we're gonna go ahead, let this get to a boil, and we're gonna go ahead and prepare our other ingredients. So in my household, my mother was the only Filipino person that I grew up with for most of my life, and we lived in very small towns in the South, so she didn't really have access to ingredients that she had grown up with. So today my version is very I guess simple in comparison to how it can be made, how someone might have a traditional tinola, and just like with any family recipes, you have different variations. This is what I've come to love for myself. My mother made it in a few different ways. So we'll get to chopping up these bell peppers. So I've got 5 here. We are going to put these into the pot to stew. I also have a bundle of bok choy. I have rinsed, washed all of these, and now we're just gonna break them down to put them into the stew. So with this bell pepper, I'm just gonna chop the top, and then from the inside, I'm going to take my knife and then just cut the ribs here. Cut a little bit away from you, like this, and then you're going to pull the core of the bell pepper out, toss the innards, and then you're going to take the white part of the ribs out. Just because they're very bitter, they don't really add any flavor. I'm gonna go ahead and chop this up. I like to leave my green peppers rather large because I like to have them as kind of like another meatiness of the dish. So they will go in. I'm just quartering them here. If you want to make them thinner, you certainly can. And then for the top, I'm just gonna cut around this, or it came off easy enough, and then just make this a little bit smaller as well. So this is actually my favorite dish that my mother would make me in my entire life. Yes, that's even more than lumpia, which is most people's introduction to Filipino food and culture, lumpia and adobo, which are both classics. I think adobo is the national dish of the Philippines. Each region has its own type of adobo based on the influence that that culture had. So I believe, if I have it correctly, the northern part of the Philippines is more influenced by China. The lower part of the Philippines is more influenced by Spanish culture, and then countries closer to there, and some even by like Thai and French cultures. So it's very interesting. Also, this recipe, chicken tinola, and I cannot remember the Filipino word for chicken at the moment, but I did not know the name of this dish when I was growing up. Mainly, my mother did her best to try to teach us Tagalog, but again, as the only Tagalog speaking person in our household, and us going to American schools, and just that time in the world, it wasn't seen as super valuable to learn that as a language, and unfortunately, we didn't keep up with it as children, not understanding that. So I actually called this, for most of my life, green chicken, because it had bell peppers, it's green, whatever other vegetables in there that she put in there were likely green as well. So I didn't know the name of this dish probably until about 2 years ago, just because I was trying to educate myself a little bit more about her culture, embrace my heritage in a more genuine way. But I will say I love patterns, I guess, and my particular tradition of how this is made. I would love to taste how someone else makes it. If you have your own recipe of chicken tinola, please send that to me, because I would like to get a different perspective of this dish, traditional or otherwise, if you have a similar experience. But that's, again, how I grew up with it. So also something that I find funny, not knowing the name of this dish. So my name is Shelina, S-H-E-L-I-N-A, and growing up, I've never met another Shelina in my life. I still haven't. I've met Selinas, of course, Celines, Cecilias, things like that. And I have Googled the name Shelina, and there are tons of other people out there with a similar or same spelling. But I was speaking with my parents one day. We were, of course, I say, somehow we got on the subject of the story when I was born, and then why my mother named me what she named me, which I had always known. I was named something after one of her best friends back home, and she wanted a little flair on my name. And in the story, she goes, and that's why I named you Shelina, because it is after my friend, but it's a little different because I add the H, Shelina. And I stopped in the middle of that story and I said, excuse me? What did you say? She goes, yeah, Shelina. And I said, have I been pronouncing my own name wrong my entire life? My father's in the background on speakerphone. Me too! So absolutely wild. At the age of 34, I learned how to correctly pronounce my own name. Now, my mother has given me permission that I can say my own name however I want. And I've actually learned through different books and things that Filipino names are so unique. One of the things is like the documentation system in that country, but also people pronounce them in different ways, whether you just don't have that sound in your language, or you assume someone's name sounding. And I just found that so fascinating that for 34 years I had called myself Shelina, And my mother probably in her mind every time thought, Shelina. So there you go. Oh, and recently there's an actor, I think he's the newest doctor on Doctor Who. He had a story about not knowing how to pronounce his own name. If I think of where I saw that, I will try to share it. But I just thought it was very funny that there are other people out there. And yeah, just like your recipe, if you would like to share your name story, I know Filipinos and just people in general have nicknames that are different, how you style your nicknames, and that's also definitely part of a culture, so I'd love to hear all of that. We have finally finished the green peppers. They're giant and beautiful. We're gonna move on to the bok choy. So it comes in a bundle. I have torn all the leaves off the bundle and thrown away the core. You want to make sure to definitely rinse the bottom because it catches a lot of dirt there. And then we're just going to trim these up. I like to have the chunkier base here, like my bell peppers. So those are going to go in the same time as the bell peppers. And then this here, I'm going to split it. That way it can go into the dish like this. And they'll kind of make like wavy leaves in the dish. So we have this here. I'll keep that. That one's kind of small, so we won't split that. Bok choy is absolutely delicious. I'm not sure if it's related to like mustard greens or things like that, but definitely good for leafy applications. This one, it's a little ragged at the bottom, so I'm going to cut the bottom off there and trash. If it's kind of ugly, I'm going to trim that and toss that. I'm going to try to cut these little brown bits out here. Perfect. And then if you want to just leave giant leaves, you can do that too. Really, these vegetables are just meant to give it more body. From what I've learned from my mother in her experience living in the Philippines and having a large family, not having many resources growing up, they made a lot of stews. I would venture to say that that's very typical and common in most Filipino culture. You're not seeing lumpia all the time. You're not seeing protein dishes all of the time. You're trying to figure out a way to stretch your ingredients through a large family. So a lot of the dishes that she has shared are soup based. So that way, you know, you have a little bit of rice and then you put that under these, you know, soup style dishes. The rice is really a side. It's not a main part of the dish. It kind of helps add body, and then whatever vegetables that you may have as well. And like this just had a little spot, so I'm gonna rip it off. You don't have to knife everything, it's fine. And this one is a little brown. Just trim that here. Add this in. A little brown here. And then trim that off. Those are a little bit old. I was speaking with my mother recently, and she was also making chicken tinola. She likes to tell me whenever she makes it herself where she is, and then all of the variations that she does. That woman is wild. She has a beautiful garden. Most of her vegetables are taller than she is, and she just loves to experiment with food. She has a deft hand. She can make anything amazing. And one of her variations, she grows moringa, which is a leafy type, I guess it's a vegetable or it's just a leafy plant. People can use it for tea. And she uses it kind of similarly like spinach. So she added moringa leaves to her tinola. Said it was very delicious. It has, if I could remember correctly, because I haven't had it in a long time, it has a very earthy flavor. I wouldn't say bok choy is very earthy. It kind of takes on the flavors of the food that it's in. But moringa definitely has its own identity when you put it with things. And look how cute this is. This just came from the heart of it, and that's just adorable. I think it's adorable. All right, so now we're gonna go take a look at the water, see if it's already boiling. Oh, it's not, but it has bubbles here. And then you can see the ginger starting to get a little bubbly here. So we're just gonna wait a bit, maybe turn it up on high, and then get it boiling. So what we're waiting for is for this to boil. And then we have 2 pounds of skinless, boneless chicken thighs. Of course, you can use any parts of the chicken, bone on, skin on, however you wish to do this. I do this as a quick version, and then I do like the chicken thigh meat best out of a chicken. So that's what we'll be using. My mother oftentimes will do this with quartering a chicken, just because the bones do add a little bit of extra flavor. I haven't tried this with like chicken broth before, but I'm sure you can have chicken broth instead of water. I think that actually would be delicious. So we're going to wait for this to boil. Chicken Tinola, chicken Tinola. I should look that up. Let me Google what the Filipino word for chicken is. We have a handy dandy computer right here. Oh, don't look at my password.
Too late.
Too late. I think I remembered it, but I'm also gonna fact check myself. I think it's manok. I think that's what it is. Okay, Tagalog for chicken. Hold on, pronounce it for me. Oh, it's not loud.
Manok.
I think my pronunciation is a little lazy, but if she is correct, manok? Then is it manok tinola? Tinola manok? We'll see. But I'm glad to know. That does make me feel a little bit better. And our rice is cooking. Oh, so it says that it's warm, and I'm a monster and I try to see if it'll cook. Okay, so yeah, it's gonna say, no, it's done cooking. So I like to leave it in here because I like my rice to be just a hair drier than when the machine says that it cooks. I don't know why. I just like the texture of it to be a little bit drier. That's just another way to add body to the soup. So we're gonna go check that water, see whether it's doing a rolling boil or not, see how much boil that we do get. All right. That's beautiful. And it smells so good. All right. So in here, I've taken out of the fridge, I have around 2 pounds of chicken thigh meat. It's boneless, skinless chicken thighs. So we're gonna go ahead and put this in the water. These generally take about 15 minutes to finish cooking through. I am, or on this high of a heat, I like to do them a little bit longer. They get a little softer. I'm gonna turn down the heat a little bit as well. We just put it up this high so it could get to that boiling point. Let's spread this one out a little bit. There we go. And then just put them in there. Kind of situate them where each of them has their own room. And then we will put this away. So I like to give the chicken a little bit of a head start. It's gonna start making its own little chickeny broth with the ginger and the salt. And then after about 5 minutes, we're going to put the bell peppers and the stock parts of the bok choy into the mix. And then another 5 minutes, then we'll put the leafy bits because I want those to be the least done. They're also very thin. There's not much to them. And I don't want them to turn into just mush through the whole thing. So we'll give this a minute, let it roll around, and then we're gonna add everything else. All right, so the chicken is now back up to temperature. It's a little boil. So we're gonna take these vegetables. We're going to put them into the pot. We're gonna take, I ended up putting this all the way on high. So we're gonna take this back down to medium high, however you feel comfortable. Doing a little bit of medium high, and then we're just gonna drop all of this goodness in there. Be careful, don't splash yourself. Now, if you are using chicken on the bone, you may see some impurities from the chicken come. There's a little bit in here. That's kind of what that sudsy stuff looks like. But this is fine for me. I'm okay. If it was any more than that, you might want to get like a little mesh strainer or something to skim those off of the top. But for today, with these chicken thighs, the way it looks for me, I'll survive. It'll work. So again, just putting these chunky bits in. So first we're just gonna layer them like this. Just get them into the pot, and it's already starting to smell absolutely delicious. All right, everybody's in the pool. So then we are going to take a spoon and kind of just get some of that down more into the water. So this water should keep its general temperature and then come back up to a boil. I can hear it still, you know, starting, it's strong. So I would say probably about 5 minutes for these. If you like the doneness of it to be a little bit longer, you can do that as well. Really, your chicken is just getting a little bit more tender the longer that you stay. It sounds like it might get more tough, but in me cooking this, I feel like it's fine. It falls apart. So, all right. Now we're gonna give it this 5 minutes to let it hang out. After that, then we will add in the leafy bits. So, excellent. Okay, the pool party is now ready for the bok choy leaves. Okay. Just gonna toss these in there. We're going to squish them down. There we go. Kind of just get everybody in there. They look even prettier in the water. Let's go down. So at this point, I would say you can do it earlier, but if you want, have a little taste of some of this water broth and see how you feel. Like I said earlier, I like it a little salty, so I feel like I'm gonna maybe add more salt. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, gonna add more salt there. And usually when I'm by myself, I would just let my heart tell me what to do, but I'm gonna see. We're probably gonna add another tablespoon in there because I'm salty. All right, that is in there. Now we're gonna stir that around. Look how good everybody looks. The bell peppers are getting a little soft. trying to move this around. Get these back under there. Great. All right. I'm gonna check this in another 5 minutes and see how it's going, how the flavors are building. Maybe another 10 minutes and we'll see how it's going. But yeah, I kind of just see how tender the chicken is, if the broth is to the flavor of my liking, and making sure that the bok choy stalks and the bell peppers are a little bit softer. I tend to like them to be very soft, sometimes mushy, which is why I have them in there before the leaves. So we'll see how it goes. So I'll show you how I like to plate this. I'm a big fan of, I think these are known as pasta bowls, where it's like a bowl and a plate made a baby, because I prefer bowls, but I like the surface area of this. So if you don't know what this is, this is in every Asian person's home. This is actually a gift, and by a gift, I mean I probably stole it from my parents' house. But this is traditionally what we would take rice with. So we're gonna get ourselves a helping of rice here. I'm gonna do conservative, and I cannot remember the name of what my mother calls it. A Filipino term for when the rice gets brown and crispy on the bottom, but that is her favorite part. If we were to have left this cooking longer, we would have to sacrifice the whole bottom of the rice to her, which she's very deserving, so we will give that to her. All right, so again, conservative portion here because we're doing a tasting, and we're gonna go ahead and turn this heat off as well. That still has the heat within it, so it's going to continue to cook. You can either pull it off of the burner. I'm going to leave it a little bit, just because. Okay, so I like to definitely first grab bell peppers. And as you can see, I'm draining off the liquid right now, and then I will show you how I prefer it. Oh, all right, we're going to do that. Get a little bit of bok choy stalk, and then let's get some leaves. And then that has a little bit of liquid. I like to drizzle it over the rice so if it doesn't drain off. And then we're gonna get some chicken here. If you want, you can, like I took some piece off when I was checking the chicken earlier. Do we have any other little chicken pieces? No, so we're gonna leave those in there. I like to make them a little bit smaller whenever I do, because it was the big chunk of chicken thigh, so I'll make it a little bit smaller whenever I put these away. So this is our beautiful plate of food, and we're gonna go ahead and give it a try. Not only are there the smells of the ginger and the green bell pepper cooking, but rice in general, just so fragrant, especially jasmine rice, and it brings me straight back home. I feel exactly like I'm at mom's house and she just made me a plate of food. Now I know this is delicious, but it will never be as good as my mother's. So let's go ahead and give it a try. As I take my silverware out, I would also like to share another bit of Filipino culture. Again, with just my mother in the house, she was the example that we had. It's traditional for some Filipinos to actually eat with their foot in the chair. So they'll bring up their knee and then eat like this. You would take a little pocket of rice. This doesn't have much broth in it, so you would take the pocket of rice, eat it, and then go about your business. And so you have one hand for rice, and this is your other hand. Don't touch the food with it. And this is how you eat. So That's something that I always saw my mother doing, and she's absolutely precious. And yeah, if you see another Filipino person doing it, that's just how it is. All right, so I'm gonna take this with a spoon. I'm going to take some of this chicken here, take a little piece, and have the brothy rice with it. This is actually usually more rice than I would have. I more like it a little bit wet. Yeah. That's the bite. And then this green here. This it's soft, but there's still sturdiness to the leaf. Whereas, like, you know, there's still sturdiness to this stalk, but it's mushy. The bell pepper itself is mushy. That skin still gives it, like, it holds it together. So it's a very meaty texture, these items. So, yeah. I hope that you have enjoyed making this with me today, as well as hearing crazy stories. And by crazy, I just mean, you know, things particular, specific to me. My experience with my culture and how I grew up with Filipino food is going to be way different, or maybe similar to yours. But we all have those experiences for ourselves. And I would invite you to try Filipino food if you have never had it. If you grew up with it, share your variations with folks, and we just understand that it's not always the same. You know, in America, you don't make hamburgers the same. You're not gonna make chicken tinola the same, but this is what I had at home, and this is what I wanted to share with you. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for enjoying this day with me. And yeah, I hope you join me for another cultural discovery. Have a good one, guys. Bye.